Good.
So hi everyone, welcome to another virtual BEAT Talk event. My name is Fotini Pitoglu and I'm an executive member of BEAT. Today with me are Sharon Phillip, executive member of BEAT, along with Betsy Williamson and Elsa Lam, who are advisory members. I would like to begin by taking a moment to acknowledge that the land we're based on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Kwentat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. We are honored to have COMN Architects host tonight's BEAT Talk. BEAT is continuing to work in collaboration with local architects to provide a platform for promoting equity within the profession through networking and leadership opportunities. BEAT Talks are a series of discussions held at the offices of architects across the city, where hosts will share their learned experience. You may sign up for our mailing list on the BEAT website to receive notifications for more details on upcoming events.
This talk is being recorded and will be posted to the BEAT social media for those who could not attend. All of the participants' microphones were muted upon entry, but you will be able to submit questions at any point during the presentation in the Q&A section at the bottom center of the screen. We will read your questions at the end of the presentation. The chat box can be used for any immediate troubleshooting assistance.
This webinar qualifies for one OAA structured learning hour, so please stay until the end to receive your certificate. The Con Ed certificates will be emailed to the participants by the end of April.
Thanks, Sharon. COMN Architects is a Toronto-based architecture practice founded in 2019. So you guys are just babies in the world, even though you've had tons of prior experience. Their studio combines the innovative with the pragmatic, creating well-crafted, timeless, and considered spaces. Much of their work and research is focused on medium-density residential building typologies that provide an alternative to high-rise apartments. So this is something that's so relevant to all the discussion about housing in Toronto right now. So we're very excited about that. This includes contextuality, sensitive, low to mid-rise multifamily buildings on underutilized infill sites. And now I'll pass it off to Elsa to introduce Clarissa and Peter.
Thanks so much, Betsy. So Clarissa Nam and Peter McNeil are the founding partners of COMN Architects. Both are licensed architects in Ontario. And Clarissa, prior to co-founding COMN, gained experience leading residential and commercial projects at both small and large firms in Toronto. She's a graduate of the University of Waterloo with her Bachelor of Environmental Studies in Urban Planning and Design. And she also has a Master of Architecture degree from the University of Toronto. Peter, for his part, worked for architect and developer George Popper, designing and developing residential and mixed-use projects in Toronto before founding COMN. And he earned his Bachelor in Architectural Science from Ryerson University and his Master of Architecture degree from Lawrence Technological University. There we go. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So we're very excited to hear their presentation, and I'll turn it over to you, Clarissa and Peter.
Great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. So as Elsa and Betsy introduced, my name is Clarissa Nam, and I have my co-founding partner, Peter McNeil here, from joining me for the presentation this evening. So just to give you a little background about us, COMN Architects was founded in 2019. The launch was timed to coincide with the retirement of Peter's former boss, architect George Popper. We were fortunate to be able to start COMN with some ongoing projects, as well as a small team and client base. Our current projects are a mix of multifamily residential, mixed-use building, custom homes, and small commercial projects. When BEAT asked me if I would be interested in giving a presentation, in all honesty, I hesitated, as we are a young firm, and I wasn't quite sure what we could add to the conversation when so many amazing women and men have participated before us, many I personally look up to. But given some of the challenges we face today, like urban intensification and housing availability, we thought it would be worthwhile to share the work we've completed and some projects that are currently ongoing in our studio. This by no means is a solution to housing affordability, but we think it's a relevant dialogue on how we approach development, urban planning, and architecture. So by looking at the three photos here, the first one, we see a wide sidewalk and a boulevard. The middle, back of a building and a parking lot. And lastly, row of garages of a laneway. What they all have in common is that, well, they don't look like much. Spaces like these are often overlooked and underappreciated segments in the city. As intensification efforts continue, we're always interested in looking at opportunities to gently add density while maintaining the existing character and fabric of the neighborhood as much as possible. The three projects we will discuss this evening explore this concept of underutilized lots and their potential. We will start with Semi-Semi, which is, as the name suggests, a pair of semi-detached homes located here in Toronto. Peter and I live in one, while the other is currently used as a long-term rental. The second project is a 24-unit addition to an apartment building in the city's East End. The building is owned by Aquahansta, an organization that provides rent-geared-to-income apartments to members of the Aboriginal community. Lastly, we will briefly discuss our proposal for adding 14 units to an existing two-story walk-up in the city's core.
So Semi-Semi was a self-initiated project, so we'll start with the why. Why did we want to take this on, and what did we hope to achieve? As optimistic and slightly naive young architects, we saw this project as a chance to live affordably, get our work out into the world, and try out a slightly different model in the process. After graduation, we were both working at firms and living with our parents, which has its benefits, but I was anxious to get out on my own. We hadn't met yet, but I know Clarissa was pretty comfortable at home. Although nowhere near as bad as it is today, home prices were still relatively high compared to the salary of a fresh grad. Adding a rental suite is a common way to offset living expenses, so this became a key component of the project. Another challenge that young architects face is developing a portfolio of work that represents their own voice. We aspired to start our own practice one day and thought that having some built work would be needed to get our name out there. And we also wanted to experiment with how this future practice might operate. As a student, I came across the work of Jonathan Siegel, an architect designing, developing, and building low-rise, multifamily, and mixed-use projects in San Diego. His work was much more progressive than conventional housing projects at the time, and it seemed apparent that having full control as both architect and developer had something to do with that. He also advocates for other architects to do the same, offering courses that teach some of the basics and things that he's learned. He says, we can do what we want and answer to no one, and that he feels bad for architects that get pummeled and hammered and work cheaply and become bag boys when they can do this. The quotes might be a bit over the top, but this idea resonated with me. I had been working at firms during my summer breaks, so some of the realities of the traditional process became apparent. I thought Mr. Siegel might be onto something here. And he was not the only architect doing this. George Popper is an architect that has been developing his own projects on infill sites in Toronto for decades. First with his partner, Peter Gabor, then on his own, and now as a partner with Grid Developments. His experience in this area was the reason I approached him to be my OAA mentor and later joined his firm. So with these goals in mind, the search for the perfect site began. The search method was simple. Go to realtor.ca, zoom out over all of Toronto, and sort by lowest price. A couple of weeks later, this property came on the market. A vacant corner lot, 16 feet wide by 78 feet deep, just off the Danforth. The site was close to the subway and all the amenities along the Danforth, and as a corner lot, it had a lot of potential for natural lighting. but it also had its drawbacks. It was on the small side in a somewhat busy location, and with its full depth right on the sidewalk, it seemed very exposed. Not ideal for a single family home, but we saw potential for a duplex or even a triplex. The property hadn't always been vacant. This is a photo from 1952. We believe the former house was built in the late 1920s. We later learned from our neighbors that the house was neglected for a long time and was leaning quite a bit to one side due to poor soil conditions in the area. And then this happened in 2008. The city ended up stepping in, prohibiting occupancy of the house until it was deemed safe. But the repairs were never made, so it was demolished by the bank and put up for sale. The price they were asking seemed a bit high, so the search continued. But we kept our eye on it, and after it sat on the market for about 5 months, we put in an offer that was accepted. Then it was time to get to work. Early in the design process, it became clear that a conventional duplex or triplex layout with units stacked on top of each other was not the best option for the site. The lower unit with bedrooms and living spaces so close to the sidewalk foot traffic would not be able to take advantage of the western exposure while keeping any sense of privacy or quietness. This would only emphasize the inevitable hierarchy that comes with a stacked unit building. By dividing the building vertically, we would be able to create units of the same size, but also with a similar quality of space. Semi-detached houses are also one of the prevailing building types in the neighborhood, so it fit the context well. Although in this case, both semis would be on one lot. And to take this even further, we broke the massing up into 3 smaller volumes to maintain the rhythm of 14 to 17 foot wide lots that line the street. Courtyards were then carved out of the second floor, bringing natural light into the bedroom area and allowing for some outdoor space. The courtyards help give a sense of seclusion despite the busy location. We then looked at ways to screen the courtyards and backyard area with opaque and semi-transparent cladding elements that are integral to the architecture. Varied materials and material combinations were explored, including corrugated metal, which didn't seem right in this context, and masonry, which was avoided to maximize the interior dimensions. One concern we had, given the location, was graffiti. The material at grade had to be something that could be easily cleaned or painted, and ideally a product that we could install ourselves. We ultimately arrived at this scheme and applied for the necessary approvals. The final material selections were white stucco, gray fiber cement panels, and black painted wood siding for the base. It all seems logical and straightforward to us now, but one of the biggest challenges was figuring out when to stop. Without any outside deadlines, it was revision after revision. Thankfully, the small footprint and many site constraints were somewhat limiting. Another limiting factor was the budget, and this translated into much of the decision-making. This is a breakdown of how costs were allocated. We're not going to get into dollar amounts, as with the increases to land and construction costs that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, they're not relevant anymore. The breakdown would likely look different in today's market, with the land cost taking up a greater percentage of the total. To incorporate key elements like the courtyard, large wood windows, an open staircase, and fiber cement cladding, we needed to find savings in other areas. For example, the structure is conventional wood framing with no steel beams or columns. The excavation depth was shallow to avoid the requirement for shoring. The floor plans are mirrored to maximize efficiency. Custom items and complicated details were kept to a minimum. We also self-contracted the construction and took on some of the work ourselves. Construction went smoothly for the most part, but there were definitely some bumps along the way. 22 helical piles were installed to address the poor soil conditions. The foundations went in, framing was underway, and then our first problem. A building inspector from the city on site for review, pointed out a clause in the plumbing section of the building code that we were not aware of. Our intention was for the servicing to work just like a typical multifamily property, one water and sewer connection from the street, split internally to each unit. But according to this clause, no plumbing serving a dwelling unit shall be installed in or under another unit of the building. This arrangement is only allowed when the units are stacked. There wasn't enough room to split the services outside of the building, so the only option was to have a second set of services installed for the north semi. But that created another problem. The city will only install one water and sewer connection per property. So for this to be fixed, the property would need to be severed in two. So just as framing was underway, we applied to the Committee of Adjustment again, this time for consent, with a letter from Toronto Water in hand. The committee members had enthusiastically approved the project at the first hearing, and since this was just a technicality with no change at all to the built form, it seemed like a slam dunk. But as I'm sure many of you know, the committee can be unpredictable. The new members were not as enthusiastic about the project and denied the severance. At this point, our best option was to appeal the decision and go to the OMB. At the OMB hearing, our evidence was uncontested and the legal severance was approved. We were finally able to receive the additional water and sewer connections. As construction progressed, we focused on getting the rental suite completed and occupied first, then finishing ours and moving in. And we've lived here for about 6 years now.
Living close to the Danforth at the edge of Toronto's Greek town certainly has its advantages. We have lots of shops, restaurants, and other amenities accessible by foot or bike. The nearest subway station is a 6-minute walk away from our place, so it's very quick and convenient to get around the city. It's a really nice, lively neighborhood full of activity, especially in the summer and during the Taste of Danforth festival. Less so in middle February when these videos were taken. We were very conscious of the building height and wanted to ensure that the overall form would not seem imposing to those walking on the sidewalk. The height is almost 2 meters lower than what is allowed as of right. And as you can see, the neighborhood is a mix of detached and semi-detached houses. Symmetrical white stucco masses are a subtle way of referencing the semi-detached building type. The base is black wood siding layered with landscaping in front to help soften the edge. The center volume is the only area clad with gray fiber cement panels to help reinforce the symmetry of the two ends and work within the fine-grained fabric of the neighborhood. The black wood siding and fiber cement panels were installed by Peter with some help from his father. The installation of the siding was straightforward, with the siding being right at grade and each plank the same length. For the fiber cement installation, we rented a scissor lift and the panels were kept to a manageable size. Each of these took about a week to complete and helped to save us about $10,000. The entrance to each home was given a lot of consideration. Although they have mirrored floor plans, we wanted to address the corner condition and acknowledge each frontage with a private entrance. The separation also helps create a sense of autonomy between the two. Semi-semi is organized in a split level configuration. This allowed us to raise the living spaces to be out of view of people walking by, providing much needed privacy being located on a busy street. To ensure acoustic separation between the homes, living spaces are located at either end with service spaces stacked adjacent to the central party wall. Peter and I live in the north semi, which is entered from an alcove off the sidewalk into a mid-level foyer. Privacy wasn't a concern here, so we have a large welcoming window. Our dog loves this spot. It gets lots of sun and it is great for people and dog watching, which he enjoys doing too much. So entering the foyer, to save space, we didn't include a closet. We have hooks instead on a wood-clad wall. So on this same level, there is a small powder room tucked away from the living and dining spaces. The mirror in the powder room extends wall to wall to give illusion of more space. Half a level down from here is where we have our ultimate multi-purpose room. A room that is about 10 by 12 functions as our laundry room, gym, guest bedroom, and our office. Before COVID, it served as our home office, but as now we work from home full-time, we needed more storage and had to change the layout slightly. The main living space is a half a level up from the foyer. The transition to the living room was intentionally compressed to emphasize the height and openness when you arrive. The large west and north facing windows bring a ton of direct and diffuse natural lights. Each function-specific level bleeds into the next as each space is experienced in sequence. We think this helps the space feel much larger than it is. From the living room, there is also access to the backyard and parking. The kitchen and dining are within the same space, but elevated to create a physical separation for each function. We use seamless glass guards to keep a strong visual connection between the two. The dining area works well for up to 5 people. The space is screened from the outside with perforated aluminum panel, which offers privacy from the street and casts interesting shadows that change throughout the day. The glazing needed to be operable for cleaning and ventilation. And we found that at this size, a door was much more economical than a tilt-turn window. So it became somewhat of a Juliet balcony. We wanted the kitchen to disappear into the wall as much as possible. So white corian was used for countertop and backsplash. The kitchen was kept simple with most appliances integrated into the cabinetry. Being a small kitchen, we tried to maximize storage as much as possible. The overall material palette is kept simple and minimal: white walls and cabinetry, natural wood tones, and warm gray tiles to balance it out. One of the more important features of the house is the stairs. We wanted the stairs to appear light and, like the kitchen, almost disappear so they don't overwhelm the space. Using exposed metal brackets to support the treads was a more cost-effective than concealed fasteners, but locating the brackets in space was a bit of a challenge. In the end, temporary stairs were built to serve as both construction stairs and to use as a template to install each bracket in its correct location. Continuing up the stairs from the kitchen, the main bedroom level is next. So as you reach the top of the stair, you are greeted by a courtyard space. The bedroom is sized to have enough room for a queen-size bed, 2 nightstands, a dressing area, and a semi-built-in wardrobe. We wanted a built-in look for the closets, but didn't have the budget for custom work. So we had a wall framed with an opening matching the size of IKEA wardrobes. The bedroom looks out into the courtyard, which is our favorite part of the house. It brings so much natural light into this level without sacrificing our privacy at all. We're able to leave the blinds always open and have that connection to the outside, unless we need to sleep in. So up another few risers is a door to the courtyard and our main bathroom. The perforated aluminum screen we saw below extends up to act as a guard for the courtyard. And that is the tour of our semi. Next, we will quickly show you the other units. We're between tenants at the moment, so the place is empty, and there are a few differences from our home. The main difference is the entrance. The entry door is at the living room level. This area is bumped out to create a small foyer. So heading down to the basement, there is a full bathroom and a laundry at this mid-level. And another half level down, there is a second bedroom. The bedroom here is larger than our multi-purpose room due to the bump out above. We apologize for the shaky footage. We sped this part up a little bit. And everything from the kitchen up is the same as our semi. We really enjoy living in this space. It's about 1,000 square feet, but we find it is enough room for the three of us and it suits our lifestyle well.
This project came about from one of our clients, a real estate and development company that also specializes in managing buildings for nonprofits. They've been property managers for Aquahansta for many years. Aquahansta is a nonprofit housing company that provides rent-geared income and market apartments to members of the Aboriginal community. They currently operate 2 apartment buildings in Toronto's East End with a total of 117 units. The 2 buildings are situated on an irregular shaped property fronting 2 streets, Kingston Road and Edgewood Avenue, with ample parking in between. The organization was successful in receiving a grant from City of Toronto's Open Door Affordable Rental Housing Program, and we were asked to design an extension to the larger apartment building, 136 Kingston Road. The existing building is 3 stories with a basement that has a walkout at the rear. It's a very long brick building consisting of bachelor 1 and 2 bedroom units with good sized windows for living and bedroom areas. The parking lot is underutilized with less than half of the spaces occupied. By repurposing some of this area to extend the building, it would be possible to add a significant number of new rent-geared income apartments with minimal impacts to the building's surroundings or its current residents. The surrounding neighborhood consists of mostly single-family homes and low-rise apartment buildings. To work within this context, we use the existing building height and setbacks as our guide. Although the apartment building is long, its comparatively narrow street frontage hides the full scale of the building well from the sidewalk. The new addition will be almost invisible from the public realm. By taking advantage of the topography at the rear, we were able to add a new lower floor level with additional suites and common area. It also helped us to create a more engaging entrance connected to a new landscaped amenity area. Another important aspect of the project is accessibility. The building does not currently have an elevator or barrier-free entrance. Both of these will be included in the new addition. Also, of the 28 new and 8 renovated suites, 25% will be barrier-free. The suites are a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom layouts. The design of the extension takes cues from the existing 1950s building with a restrained material palette and modernist details. The project is currently awaiting building permit issuance and construction is scheduled to start next month. Working through approvals with the backing of the Open Door Affordable Housing Program has been a really positive experience. There's been a real sense of urgency from city staff, a noticeable difference from most of our other projects.
And lastly, this is a recent project, so we're still in the very early stages. We were approached by the client to complete a feasibility study for this site. The existing building is a 2-story, 9-unit apartment building. It's in a wonderful downtown location, right across from the AGO and beautiful Grange Park. The neighborhood is comprised of mostly single-family houses, small apartment buildings, and many historical homes on Beverly Street. In a central location like this, adding density should be encouraged. However, it is in a yellow belt with residential zoning. The existing apartment building fits nicely into this context. So we looked at how we could add density, but retain the building and its residents. The surplus land behind the building, which makes up about half the site, is currently used for parking, with a row of 6 parking stalls fronting the lane. We looked at several options for better utilizing this area to create additional rental apartments. The lane is wide with existing structures on both sides of the property, so we felt that a new building to fill this gap would work well. During the preliminary sketches, one of the options we looked at was a rear addition, but making the connection would have required too many changes to the existing building. We ultimately arrived at a scheme that includes a new rooftop addition to the existing building that's set back from the front facade, as well as a new stacked townhouse building at the rear. The new units are oriented to the south with the landscape path to each private entrance from the generous 5.5-meter setback. Configuring the form this way really opens things up to the laneway, so when approached, it appears more inviting. It also helps bring natural light into the suites. In total, we are able to add 14 new rental suites with this scheme in a manner that would have little impact on the existing building, its residents, and its neighbors. We're currently preparing planning application for this project. The current planning policies have directed intensification efforts towards high-rise apartments and condominiums, while limiting potential for additional ground-related housing within existing neighborhoods. But it seems like that is finally starting to change. Toronto introduced its Laneway and Garden Suite program, and recently, Ontario's Housing Task Force released a draft report calling for dramatic changes to current law, including an end to single-family zoning. As cities continue to grow, the intensification of urban areas is inevitable. Toronto is facing a housing shortage, and affordability is deteriorating. Without question, we need to increase our supply of housing and the rate at which it's being built. The projects we've shown are certainly not a cure for this, but they are examples of how modest intensification can be introduced in a gentle, contextually sensitive, and non-destructive manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. This is really, really amazing, and I really appreciated the tour of COMN of Semi and the delightful shots of your dog.
Yeah.
But also all of the insights you're offering to, about things that are, that are on one hand kind of small details of the project, but but all add up to make that possible, feasible for you, and to execute it in such a beautiful way in the finished project. I would open. I think we're going to kind of shift over to the Q&A session, part of the talk. So if anybody listening would like to ask questions, then please throw them in the Q&A forum at the bottom of your screen. Meanwhile, I'm happy to launch things off with a question. I'm wondering actually if you could tell us a bit more about the profile of your practice, 3 years after being officially founded. Like, what kind of balance of project types and clients do you have? Are you, where is your work coming from? I wonder if you could talk. Are you planning to self-develop another project or not at this point? I'm wondering if you could share a little bit with us.
Sure. So I guess right now, I think I'd say maybe 50% are these multifamily projects. And then we have a mix of a few custom homes. And then there's also an aspect of our business, which is small commercial projects, working with interior designers, that type of thing. But yeah, I think this is kind of where we would like to expand. We're sort of working still in development, but as a smaller part, as part of a team for larger projects. I think we could see ourselves doing something on our own in the future. It's just sort of, I guess, as we're building COMN, kind of want to focus on our projects first, and then maybe look for something else a little bit down the road.
So there's like a code-oriented question in the Q&A. So I'm going to just throw out there, it's very simple, because the question is, how did you get the city to agree to open risers and residential? You finish my sentence.
I think it's still permitted. It usually depends on the inspector. Like, we've had that come up where the inspector will just say, no way, but nothing in the code says you can't do open risers. I guess it's a bit of a risk now, but
yeah, there's definitely a comfort level. So have you maybe just a question, because doing custom residential is so specific to the personality of the person who you're designing it for. So every project can really kind of feel very different, even though it's filtered through your voice. When people come to rent the other half of your house, it is a very specific design, and the size of the room, how they're oriented towards each other, the split level, the kind of windows they have. What kind of reactions have you been getting from people touring? Because there isn't a lot of contemporary, I'll call it contemporary even, rental units in the city.
Yeah, I think because our unit is quite unique and it's different from most of the other rentals, the people who are looking are very specific type of people. Of course, most of them are quite design oriented. It doesn't really matter if you're a designer or if you're working as just people that appreciate design. Just people that really appreciate design. But I think one thing is there's a couple of families that have looked at the unit, and they're, I guess, they're a little bit more hesitant, I think, because of the bedrooms being not on the same level. So it's, I guess, it's more geared towards younger kind of couples or professionals. So I think it's a little bit of a niche market just because of the difference, I guess.
Just a follow-up question to that is the contemporary, the genre that you work in, oftentimes the very simple room, the simple form, very simple minimal details has to be balanced by a luxurious material. Maybe in your case, it's the wood wall when you come in. It's the wood open riser stair. It's the mesh kind of at the courtyard. So there's moments that you see of the extravagance that makes the minimalism and the simplicity of the build balanced. In affordable housing, there is definitely a point at which something that's minimal can start to be kind of mean if it doesn't have the luxury of a detail or the luxury of a nice material. What's your kind of attitude towards this kind of style of work? And then are you able to translate any of that kind of detail or exuberance over into the affordable housing projects?
I think so. I guess just if you're looking at the projects that we have on the screen, it's similar detailing. I wouldn't say our detailing is sort of gets to that sort of luxurious level. I mean, maybe on some of the custom homes, but I guess that's kind of what we tried to focus on even with semi was having like a really clean, minimalist design, but not kind of overdoing it with details. Because as we all know, the more minimalist you want to make it, the
harder.
the more difficult and expensive it becomes. So just trying to find that fine balance between sort of design and practicality and ease of construction.
Fotini, I'll throw it off to you then.
Sure. First of all, great presentation. So I'm just wondering how competitive you find that the market is for a young practice like yours, and whether it was easy for you to get the clients that you have right now, or what your strategy was, especially when there are some well-established offices in Toronto, maybe even bigger offices, or even some other designers around Toronto who might not have your qualifications, but they still provide the same service.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think especially for single family homes, I think it's like the custom homes, it's very competitive. There's obviously a lot of great firms in Toronto, and like you mentioned, that's just the architects, and there's all the designers, and we know that architects make up a small percentage of custom home design. So I think that's definitely a tricky market. Just I guess for those projects, we're just really trying to focus on the work that we have till it turns out as well as possible, so we can hopefully get published and sort of lead into more projects. Like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, we're really fortunate to sort of have some projects to start with when George retired. So that's been, we're thankful for that. And it's sort of in that niche that we like, the multifamily housing. So so we're lucky to have that and hope to sort of continue.
Thanks for your answer. I'm just wondering if Sharon wants to ask a question.
I guess, Clarissa, you said, I mean, we all know about Peter's background, but did any experience in certain types of projects make you more inclined towards residential and, a certain type of design? What kind of interested you towards this?
So I worked at smaller firms and also a really big firm as well that focus on high rise. And I think when I was working and kind of straight out of grad school, I try to not focus too much on the kind of the aesthetic aspects of the projects, but just trying to get as much experience as I can in terms of working on just different scales of projects and different size, and different cities and different typologies, like even just simple kind of one room addition to like over 300 unit condos. So I was really more focused on getting that experience versus kind of pushing for my own like aesthetics, if that makes sense. Because yeah, I mean, I think that's, yeah. So, and then I think through that, because I also worked in like commercial projects as well, I kind of found the residential and really the small scale kind of or medium-sized residential more personally interesting for me, because like, for example, a custom home, you really get personal with the clients and you really get to understand them in a completely different level. So that's also part of what I really enjoy as well. And also kind of the mid-sized projects, you know, that we presented today, they're also very personal because the site has so many constraints and just different neighbors and different contexts. Yeah, so I think that's what makes residential for me very appealing and interesting. And, you know, if you think about it, everybody, well, most people like live in a home and you live somewhere, right? And it's something that I think a lot of people sometimes take for granted. You know, you have a bedroom, you have a kitchen, and you have a living room. But as architects and as designers, we always think you can always improve that kind of the basic need a little bit better, a little bit more unique, a little bit more different. So yeah, I just think it's overall really fascinating. Even if it's a one-room addition, it could be this beautiful glass box or just something so monolithic. It's endless, I think, the possibilities.
There's another question in the Q&A about issues with graffiti at Semi. Given that you're right on that long street and on a corner, maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, so we did get graffiti. I think
just once.
Yeah, just once. Yeah. And then yeah, so I mean that's why we did pick the wood siding, and because we have extra paint, so we could just paint over it. So it's
practical.
Yeah, practical for sure. Thankfully nobody's touched the cement panel, but the fiber cement, but the wood siding did get graffiti. Yes.
Yeah, that would be terrible to have to, you know, replace those on, especially since they've been weathering for a few years now.
Yeah.
You probably couldn't match them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
If maybe I'll ask one question, and if it also wants to, oh, actually something just came up in the chat. Let me just read that. Do you see Semi as a viable, repeatable template for infill densification? Or is it more of a site-specific solution to a unique set of constraints and opportunities?
Well, there's so many corner lots in the city, obviously, and I mean this is a small one. This is only 78 feet long. It's not even like a full depth property. But I think we probably got lucky with the approvals. To be honest, it wasn't easy, but going through that, I'm not sure if it would go through again. And part of that is this like OPA 320. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that, but this changed the official plan, basically saying that you really have to respect the existing lot patterns. So doing a severance in this way, probably you'd have to get an official plan amendment probably. So I think it has potential, like as we initially intended to be as a duplex, not duplex, but a 2-unit single lot property. But the other issue now is costs. I don't like it's a totally different ballgame now. I'm not sure how the numbers would work. Yeah.
We do have one more question in our Q&A section. Are there any environmentally friendly ideas applied in these designs?
So do you have a sustainability strategy for Semi? Yeah.
Not specifically, but I suppose just given the small size, it's sort of inherently sustainable.
Yeah. Compact living.
Low utilities. Yeah. But no, there's no.
Yeah, there's specific, like green or.
It's conventional in most respects in terms of the construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Fotini will start wrapping it up then, but we're really close to 7. So I'll just thank you. And also I'm sure we'll do the same. It was a great talk. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for
My pleasure.
having us.
So
Thank you so much, Clarissa and Peter. On behalf of BEAT, we'd like to thank you for that wonderful presentation and everybody who came and participated in tonight's event. Sorry, Fotini, I cut you off. You can go
oh,
ahead.
it's okay. Please remember to sign up for our mailing list on the BEAT website to receive notifications for more information on upcoming virtual events this year. Our next BEAT talk will be in March, hosted by LeMay, so stay tuned. So thanks again and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.